Welcome to the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'd like to feature a conversation I recently recorded with Laura Brokaw and Lauren Shaw. Laura and Lauren are both second-year students in our class of 2020, and they are also leaders in our Graduate Women in Business Club. The three of us recently sat down to talk a little bit more about their background, how they decided to pursue an MBA, what they've enjoyed about their experience at Darden, why they decided to take on leadership roles in their second year, and their advice for prospective students. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Laura Brokaw and Lauren Shaw. Lauren, Laura, welcome to the podcast. All right, so tell us a little bit more about you. Let's start with you, Laura. What's your background? What did you do before Darden?
Yeah, so before Darden, I was living in Peru in South America, working for a nonprofit there that supported women businesses and that development, both in tourism as well as textiles. And so while I was there in a small organization, was able to kind of try a lot of different things, wear many hats, but was really focused especially on program development and program management. And yeah, I did that for my whole time before coming to Darden.
All right. Lauren?
Yeah, so like Laura, I was also at a small company. Unlike Laura, I was not in Peru, but I was in Colorado, so that was fun in and of itself. I worked in sales and marketing for 2 different tech startups, wore every sales hat before coming to school, and then after a few years moved to marketing when I felt like I wasn't being stretched as much in different sales roles. And there I learned to work more cross-functionally with product, design, analytics. It was a really excellent experience before coming to Darden.
So Lauren, did you know that you always were going to go get an MBA? Was business school always part of your plan?
You know, it definitely was in the back of my mind. I had 2 siblings come to Darden, actually, so I visited them, drank the Kool-Aid, and, really wanted to come back home to Virginia, where I'm from as well.
So the answer of how you learned about Darden is pretty easy.
Yes. Yeah, that was very much indoctrinated during family holidays.
Well, that's the great thing about UVA alumni, Darden alumni obviously included, is they are so enthusiastic about the school and, so much want to share their experience. You got to do this. You got to think about it. How about you, Laura?
So I always knew that I wanted to go to grad school, and so I took the GRE before I finished college. But I actually, ironically, would make fun of MBA programs. One of my colleagues at work had left to do her MBA a few years before I left, and I was like, oh, why would you do an MBA? And kind of through the grad school process was looking at different programs and looking at, okay, well, what programs, like what job will I actually have after I have this program, or go through this program? And what are the skills I'm really going to gain? And I felt like the MBA was one of the few programs where I would actually be able to get a job that I really enjoyed, that would pay me enough to pay off my loans, and would really still develop me as like a leader and a manager, and in ways that I felt like other programs that I was looking for. And I think from undergrad, I had a double major. One was economics. One was something called human and organizational development. And even though both were really valuable in terms of like what I learned and gained from them, I never talk about my second major. I always talk about econ because no one understands what it is. And so I felt like there was some value in having a degree where everyone understood what that was, if I was going to be able to get kind of similar things out of the academic experience.
So one of the things prospective students struggle with is sort of the question of like, do I have the right background, or, is this, the right step for me? It sounds like for you, Laura, it was a journey to arrive at, an MBA or choosing to pursue an MBA. How would you answer that question for a prospective student? Do I have the right background?
Well, I actually think Darden does this really well of bringing people from a pretty wide set of backgrounds, that it's a little bit less about do you have the right background, but what do you actually want to do in the future? And so I think that Darden, and like honestly an MBA in general, is fairly good at molding you into being adaptable and flexible and being able to do a lot of different things. And like running a business involves probably almost anything that someone had worked in before. And so, I think some maybe academic subjects are going to be more challenging for people with different backgrounds than others. But I really think it's more about where you want to go than where you're coming from.
Would you say the same, Laura?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one of the gifts of the Darden classroom is you get to learn from everyone's different perspectives and diverse backgrounds. And so there's really so much value, I think, in being with a class that, you have some folks from consulting, some folks from banking, but then you have folks that worked at like nonprofits, such as Laura. So I think that's the beauty of it. And then thinking about what you want to do long term, and the steps that you need to take to get there. I think this program is definitely a great leap forward.
So you're in your second year, and we're going to talk about that shortly. But let's start by talking about first year. Believe y'all may have sat next to each other in section. Is that right?
Yeah, we did for a quarter. Yeah.
So what section were you in?
Section C. So go sea monsters.
That's right. Section C in the second season of the Experience Darden podcast, heavily represented in some of our interviews. Y'all are popping up everywhere. So just out there.
We're actually the section with the most presidents in the school for second years. Yeah. So I think we're like known as a little bit more of a relaxed section.
Maybe like a Hufflepuff.
But I think we really showed up in the leadership realm. Yeah. So
it sounds like it. So what was that adjustment process like? Lauren, coming from, obviously working in tech startup, being out in Colorado, you're familiar with Virginia, but, coming to Charlottesville, starting at Darden, what was it like?
I thought that I would have been better prepared for school, having had two siblings go through the program, but it was just a tough adjustment being back in the school mindset and, just even remembering how to do basic things like study for the next day and prep for classes. So it was rough, but then I did find support through my learning team. We, at Darden, you meet with your learning team every night, to prep for cases the next day. So you're ready for that cold call if it comes around. So I think building those connections with the learning team and also within Section 2, I became good friends with Laura last year. So finding those pockets and those allies in the classroom really helped me.
How about for you, Laura?
I think that for me, one of the most challenging and surprising parts was some of the academics. I did have an econ background, and so I'm comfortable with numbers, but I had no accounting and finance background at all. I did not know what a journal entry is. If you don't know what a journal entry is, as you're listening to this, it's okay. I just remember being in Darden before Darden, which is, an opportunity for students who may have had a less traditional background to come and get used to the classroom or English as a second language. And I remember being in that classroom and just being I read this case. I talked about it with people beforehand. It's been explained to me and I still don't understand. And I had never felt like that. Ever. And it got significantly better. And I agree that my learning team was very critical and just such a good support and understanding and really helping each other out. But that first part of the academics was because you're used, I think most people that come here are used to being fairly high performers, fairly good at academics. That's something that comes fairly naturally. Just to have the situation where you really challenge yourself in a new way, both to participate in class and the case method and being confident in the voice and the perspective that you bring, as well as just understanding some of the material that maybe you have absolutely no background in.
The thing that I've heard from a lot of students is it takes a little while to figure out what you need to know to be prepared for class. When you read the cases initially, it's just you're kind of all over the place. You haven't gone to class. You haven't developed that filter yet. Does that resonate with y'all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think at the same time, right, you have this academic part that is a big part. You start this recruiting part too. So at the same time, you're I don't know how to do the journal entry, but then also oh wait, I have to figure out what I want to do with my life too, which I think sometimes can be really exciting because you have these options, but sometimes can be a little bit stressful. And then you have the social side, right, of you're asking all these big questions and going through these new experiences, and at the same time trying to find this new support base and new people that you can connect with and share in that experience with together. And so I think it's just this adjustment period really of putting all these pieces of your new life and circumstances together.
The thing that we hear from students a lot is that the career piece is the really hard one to juggle, because there's just so much. There's so many companies, so many opportunities, so much going on. How do you process and filter all that? How do you not get pulled in a million different directions? Lauren, what was your approach? How did you navigate that?
So I was given two different pieces of advice going to school. One was start thinking about what you want to do in February and come in with a plan and attack it and shut out all the noise. So that was one school of thought. The second school of thought was, these next 2 years are really an incredible time to explore and just see what's out there, because there's so many companies that you're not even aware of that have really incredible MBA programs that help develop leaders. So you have to juggle those two. And I think I actually kind of split the middle, if you will. So going to school, I did consider consulting, and it would be a totally different background from what I was used to. So I started networking with some firms early on. But then I came to school and went to every company briefing that I possibly could. And because a company briefing was pretty low level effort of commitment, but you still got exposure to the people and the culture and the different roles. So I tried to keep a semi-focused, but then also be open to other opportunities that crossed my path.
So some of our listeners may be kind of curious what a company briefing looks like, or what the experience is like. What you would share a little bit more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So a company briefing, just where let's say a company sends different representatives to school, and it's an hour after class in Darden, so you have the time off. So you can make the time to go sit in a classroom and hear about the company's history, the different roles available, its culture, and then so that's essentially the first phase of the recruiting cycles, when companies just come and talk about themselves and an opportunity for folks to ask questions.
Nice. Laura, how did you manage, obviously there's a lot going on the career front. How did you kind of cut through that?
Yeah, so I think I had a little bit more of a unique situation in that I ended up getting a job offer that I ended up taking from an early career conference before school started. And so I actually had a great benefit of coming into school already with an offer that I really enjoyed, and kind of more figuring out if this was the right path for me or if there were other things that were better, more suited. I had originally written about I definitely want to be in consulting, and my offer was not in consulting. And so I think I came in with this mindset of oh my goodness, do I want to be a consultant? Is this the right path? And I think that for me, I quickly started to get this sense of this is really not the right fit for me. And I think that it is a very popular path here. And so I think sometimes there can be a lot of pressure to pursue that, or that is an image of success. And so I think that I really took a lot of time by going to a lot of company briefings as well, and a lot of the consulting things initially, to really try to figure out what was the right fit for me, whether or not that was what I had planned on coming in before. So.
Well, we definitely get that question a lot from prospective students. They see the employment report, and they see the percentage of students that go work in consulting. They know about Darden's reputation. Do you feel like other paths are possible? I mean, from your own experience, others. I realize I'm maybe asking a little bit of a rhetorical question, but I want people to hear this because I think it's important for people to know. So do you feel like other paths are possible?
Absolutely. So I actually had an internship in consulting this summer. It was an incredible experience, but I am re-recruiting. It was a really great learning opportunity over the summer to try something out for 10 weeks, but then to get affirmation that I'd like to be back on the client side and more live with my decisions and work with an insular team. So I'm very excited about the array of opportunities available across industries at Darden. So.
Laura, any thoughts?
And I completely agree. I think that sometimes it's easy to feel like there aren't as many options because so many people around you are going to all these same consulting recruiting events. But the reality is, for every consulting event, there's probably 10 other events and other companies that are happening. And so I think it's just taking the space to go explore those. And even really beyond Darden's campus, there are a number of really great career fairs as well. And so I think both on Darden as well as beyond, there are a lot of MBA opportunities that are not consulting.
So there was this really great piece of advice that I thought was eye-opening for me. We have an admitted student blog. It was for the class coming in. We asked some of the second-year students to share career tips. And one of the students said, remember, it's a 2-year process, the recruitment process. It's not all just about the internship. That re-recruitment, even people who have offers oftentimes will take some time, sort of explore and make sure to see what's out there before they actually accept the offer. So, any thoughts on that? I thought that was something that I had not considered. Since you're doing a little bit of re-recruiting, Lauren, do you want to talk about what that experience is like?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say it definitely comes around quick second year when companies are itching to get back on campus to talk to current students. So it's been really great to connect with people that I spoke with back in the fall. We reconnect over my summer experience, talk about learnings and what I'm looking for moving forward. So I'd say definitely maintain those relationships. The thing is, just with an MBA program, it's really about the value of your network. And so many Darden alumni come back to share about their experiences at their current company. But just because you're not going directly to their company after school, odds are you might end up working for them at a different company, 10 years down the line. So I think it's really more about forming those connections and relationships than trying to look for the absolute perfect job after school. It's taking more of that long-term approach to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm in the position I just signed my offer to return back full-time to where I interned over the summer. So very excited about
Congratulations.
that. Thank you. But I was definitely, just considering, especially because last year I, didn't go through the entire recruiting cycle. And I think that it's great to go into your internship. And of course, there are going to be always wonderful things and things that you love about the company and the experience that you have over the summer. And then there are also going to be things that are different than what you expected. And so I think a lot of it is about trade-offs a little bit, right? I think a lot of people have given advice of there are 3 different buckets or 4 different buckets of things that you're going to have control over, and you're probably not going to be able to get exactly what you want in every category. And so I think it was really useful even the last month or two to, talk to other companies, see what other options are out there. And also I think that can be really affirming of, no, I want to go back to where I was, and that this is the right fit for me. And this is the one that I like the most out of these options right now. So,
I just thought that was such great advice. It takes some of the pressure off the first year too, which obviously people feel that, you feel like, well, you got 2 years in an MBA program, but I got to have everything figured out. The reality is no. And I think it's important for prospective students to hear that, because so much of this is about expectation setting, what you should expect before you come in. And this is how it actually works. And there's a lot of misinformation or misimpression out there. You may have encountered some of that as prospective students.
Yeah. And I think you should come in, understand that probably wherever you are right now is probably going to change over your 2 years, maybe once, maybe twice, maybe multiple times, right? I'm working for a company that I had never heard of before Darden. I also am working in a company that works in manufacturing, which before Darden, I was like, why would anyone go into manufacturing? Just as a personal, in my mind, it was like, this doesn't make sense for me. And now you come and you're like, oh, actually, something that I just had completely written off is actually something that is a really good fit for me in ways that I didn't understand. So, and you learn more about yourself, through the internship, through your first year, through your second year. And yeah, you expect it to change.
Yeah.
And that's great.
So we invited you on the podcast to talk a little bit about your leadership roles with the Graduate Women in Business Club, amongst other things, obviously. But, GWIB has come up in many of our conversations, and obviously is one of the most active student organizations here at Darden. So talk a little bit about your roles, and then maybe we'll get into what you have planned for the coming year. So what are your roles?
Yeah, so I am the president of our Graduate Women in Business Club. Got to get the name right. And I've absolutely loved serving this role so far, and was really inspired to run for this role. All of our club roles here at Darden are elected, and so there are multiple people who are interested in many positions, and then the student body will vote, or all the members of the club will vote then for second year. So I was really inspired to run because of the last year's president. She was just absolutely wonderful, and I felt like GWIB was really impactful for my experience and a lot of our first year class, just in, academic review sessions that were incredibly helpful for getting us ready for those exams, in mentorship, and just really so much support on a personal level, which sounds, I think, sometimes silly, but when you're in this space that we talked about of adjustment, and so many things are different, and there's so many things that are vying for your time, just having that support throughout that time, I think, was really critical, as well as working towards topics of equity, staying healthy, having more serious conversations. I was just incredibly inspired by that, and wanted to help provide that for our incoming women, and also that connection among our second year class, as well as kind of continue some of the work that I was doing before Darden of working to empower women businesses, and, just seeing that huge impact that you have when all members of the family can be involved. It just, in my past work, it literally changes communities, and changes dynamics in ways that are incredibly transformational. And so I was really interested and excited to kind of continue that here at Darden.
Yeah. So Lauren, how about you? What's your role?
I'm one of 3 VPs of community development for GWIB, and like Laura, I became really interested in helping foster women's community really everywhere that I've been. So when I was out in Colorado, I volunteered for a nonprofit out there called Women's Wilderness that got women, girls, and the LGBTQ plus community outdoors, and really able to give them skills like rock climbing and just essentially provide them a safe space to really stretch themselves and feel like leaders. I really enjoyed that experience. Found a great community at GWIB. The second years last year created such an example for us, and we're able to foster such a sense of belonging and development. The fall can be a rough time for current students, just with recruiting academics, and the review sessions that Laura said were so helpful, and the mentorship that they provided. So I thoroughly enjoyed working with GWIB, and I'm very excited to be on the board this year.
Yeah. GWIB has always been super helpful to us in admissions. Great partners. Obviously, the big story at Darden this year was 40% women in the first year class. Obviously, That's not the end goal. That's a step along the way. But it's big news, and GWIB certainly played a role in that. And I think the other thing that always occurs to us as admissions folks is, just having, GWIB do as much as your organization does in terms of programming and support makes a huge difference. Because when women visit and they're prospective students here on grounds and they're asking people about their experience, people have really positive things to say. So with that, what do y'all have planned for this year? Let's start with you, Lauren. What's in store?
Yeah, so glad you asked. We have many things on the books.
So many.
So I'd say there are 3 initiatives I'm really excited about that the community team is helping develop. So one of them is a Finding Your Voice series. We also have a Breaking to the Boys Club series as well. And then another one is called Fit Gets Real. So for the Finding Your Voice series, we know the Darden classroom can be intimidating. To be in a classroom of 70 of your peers, and students are really driving the discussion at Darden in the classroom. The professor's asking the questions and cold calling, hey, Laura, what do you think about this? Or, what's going on? What's your recommendation? And so we've been pulling in female faculty to lead sessions, like second year panels, just to give them tips on how to speak up and be a leader amongst your peers. And that will also give you tips on how to really succeed in your internship and after school. So that's one series we're working on. Another one is called Breaking the Boys Club. So last year, the second years had created great series like they did a whiskey tasting or, a golf 101 lesson. So it's just certain topics that are covered in networking circles to give exposure to topics that maybe, for instance, I'm more of a beer drinker. I'm not a whiskey fan. So it would be great to get experience about whiskey. So if that's going on in a dinner conversation, I can kind of jump in and add my 2 cents on it. So those are 2 of the series. And then the last one, Fit Gets Real. We're lucky to be in Charlottesville. There's a awesome community around Darden and also a lot of female entrepreneurs too. And so most of the fitness studios are actually female owned. So this series that we've created, we essentially will schedule a workout class at one of these female owned fitness studios. And then afterwards, the owner talks about her journey and how she started up the business, the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes along with it. So it's a really great way to foster community outside of Darden and then also just to get that female perspective on what it is like to run a business.
Wow, that's great. Well, maybe we have to get y'all on the podcast after that. I'm very interested in hearing about that. There's a lot going on here in Charlottesville, particularly around entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. They just announced a Catalyst program, which is pretty cool, and then also another program through Baton for students and faculty. I don't know if y'all saw the email yesterday from Sean Carr, the leader of the Baton Institute, some funding and support that's being made available for people with startup ideas. So I feel like Darden has a pretty strong story around entrepreneurship. A lot of that also is a Charlottesville story. Yeah. So Laura, how about you? Any other things in the works that you're excited about?
Yeah. So, one part of it is our mentorship program. We've had a mentorship program in the past, but we really kind of wanted to take it up a notch this year. I think one of the really wonderful and unique features of our club that changed a number of years back is that we are dues free because we believe that every woman and man really should be able to have access to GWIB and to the resources and sessions that provides, and that shouldn't be based on if you can pay a club due or not. And so with that, we also match second-year women with every single first-year woman to be a resource to them in whatever they may or may not want. So, or not want, but just that that second year woman is there to be there for you as much or as little as you need. And whether it's recruiting or personal life or academics or whatever it might be, just someone to support you throughout your time here. So I'm definitely been really excited and have had a lot of positive feedback from that this year. Another kind of exciting thing is I think that we are working on kind of more like male allies and working towards equity as more of a system and within the school a little bit more. As an organization are just in a more mature place to be able to do that. And so we started off this quarter doing a session with one of our favorite faculty members, talking about situations and playing out even scenarios, role playing of what are situations that come up where we can be allies to each other. And it is male allies, but, honestly, like, we can be allies to each other in those circles as well. And I think a lot of those concepts apply to across like domestic and international students or like white students and students of underrepresented minorities. And that was very successful. We had a standing room only classroom. So lots of positive feedback on that and are planning to continue that throughout the year. And then our conference is one of our big points. And that is really meant to be a space to develop and take time for yourself as a leader, which is why many of us came to Darden, while also having the opportunity to interact with a number of cool companies. So,
what are you looking forward to in addition to your leadership responsibilities? What's most exciting to you about second year? We've talked with some of the second year students. Second year, best year, second year is what you make of it. I'm trying to think of all the different terminology people have used here on the podcast. But it sounds like a really exciting year, and there's sort of a choose your own adventure aspect. Certainly club organization leadership is part of it. I hear that pretty regularly from folks. But what are you excited about, Lauren, when you think about second year?
A lot of things. I do feel like the emphasis first year, you can pick 2 of 3. I'm sure folks have heard this before, but social academics and recruiting. So I'd say I really focused on recruiting academics last year. This year, I'm really excited to take classes I'm interested in. There's a lot of leadership or leading organizations. I think that's the subtopic that's called. There's a lot of interesting classes coming up this year. For instance, I'm going to Gettysburg with one of our professors to take a military style leadership course around the Civil War that I'm very excited about this fall. But then also, I didn't get the chance to hike and explore the outdoors as much. And, having been in Colorado for 5 years, the Blue Ridge just has so much to offer with Shenandoah National Park close by. So very excited to hike. And then I also learned how to play squash last year, which it was very unexpected for me. I ran in high school and a little bit in college. So the hand-eye coordination isn't all there, but I'm excited to get better and just spend time with friends. So.
Worth noting that UVA has brand new squash courts, very nice squash courts. So if you're looking to get into squash, this is a good time to get into squash.
Yeah, fun for all levels of skill.
So how about you, Laura?
I definitely echo some of that. So I think there's this image, right, of second year, best year, and sometimes this perception of second year is so much less busy. I personally have not found it any less busy, but I think that one of the beautiful things is that you get to choose how you spend your time and that you already have this community built up, which in first year you're kind of building that. And so, I'm definitely have been really enjoying kind of more of those community side of events and social aspects of that and building relationships that I didn't necessarily have the full time to do in the first year. Also, I echo the classes. I have just loved all of the classes that I've been in. And I think I'm someone who loves to pick classes also on professors. And so I've just had just wonderful professors, and getting to interact with them and having more time to interact with them has just been really fun, and stop by people's offices because they're awesome. And I think that one of the things that maybe is more unique about Darden is that so much of professors' times is dedicated and open to students, and just having more time to take advantage of that here has been really wonderful. GWIB especially. GWIB, of course.
The question that we get invariably from prospective students during this time of year where it's heavy recruitment season, talk to a lot of prospective students, everybody asks about specialization, concentration, specialization. This is something that's top of mind for a lot of prospective students because I think if you look around to a number of schools, there's a lot of emphasis on that in the second year. I feel like Darden operates a little bit differently in the second year, at least the conversations I've had, but I'm curious your thoughts about this. It doesn't seem to me like like second-year students here are particularly driven to specialize or to narrow in the second year? I'm just listening to you talk about your course load. I mean, certainly things you're passionate about, but I didn't hear a lot of specialization. Laura, any thoughts on that?
So I am going to pursue one of the concentrations in business analytics, but honestly, it's more because that was one of the areas that I really enjoyed from the core. Which side note is like a wonderful thing about the core is that you get to discover things and see that you love them that you might not have chosen for yourself. And so I'm specializing in business analytics, but it's more that like I already wanted to take a lot of those courses. So it's not necessarily requiring like a ton of effort to like make that specialization work.
Right. Lauren, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm much more of a dabbler, and I think that's kind of the attitude you get coming into second year. There's so many different types of courses you can take. So to get exposure to as many different subjects as possible, I think is really a great mindset. I definitely appreciate wanting to specialize and go deep in one area, but I think a lot of folks are more T-shaped, rather than just like totally a column, if that.
Wow. That's a good visual metaphor.
Yeah, so I'm excited to, I don't have a finance background, but I really enjoyed taking some of the more financy courses this year. But then, there's so many great leading organization classes as well. And there's really something for everyone.
Yeah. The other thing that people ask about, and off a couple recent conversations about this, and so case method doesn't tell people naturally, it doesn't give up what it is based on the name, right? It tends to obscure what it is. Try to help people understand. It's like you read something, you come to class, and you talk about it, right? Your learning team also helps you get prepared. How would you explain the case method to a prospective student? How do you help people wrap their head around what that is?
So I personally have found it to be amazing. Before I came into Darden, I was like, in deciding schools, I was like, case method, not case method. I have no idea. Like, kind of sounds intimidating. Not sure. But I actually have found the case method to be one of the things that has been honestly even most valuable, even outside of Darden. I think that the case method is basically you read a case, which is kind of like a small story, before class, and you'll have some sort of work that goes along with it, usually in a particular subject. So in finance, maybe you would be looking at things in terms of financial measures, and accounting, maybe you would be looking at those accounting statements. And so you come into class, and really the class is, I would say 90% of what is said in the class is done by students, and probably about 10% is said by professors. And I think that what that does, there's these cold calls, right? So you can get called on by a professor whether or not you raise your hand at any moment. And I think that what that does is that prepares you to contribute at any point, and prepares you to contribute in different ways of like, maybe you're the expert, maybe you have no idea, and like but you're able to ask questions. I think that also, in almost every class, you start the class with what's the decision that we're making today. And so I think that also really helps you make a decision and weigh your options. Very few decisions are incredibly easy and are completely clear cut. And so I think that's reflective also of, eventually the leadership positions that we would aim to be in, and being able to live with the choice that you make and understand what you're trading off by making that choice. And so, I know for my internship, as well as I think for a lot of internships, Darden students are incredibly well prepared to contribute and to be asked for their opinion or thought at any moment, and that's not, or present or be involved at any moment, and that's not scary, right? And you learn how to be wrong and to change your opinion, and I think that that's another like wonderful and beautiful thing about the case method. So.
Yeah, Elena talked about the sort of changing your mind, and to be able to do it in a way that you don't lose credibility or face with your classmates. That's also a skill she talked about on the blog last year, and I thought that was interesting. Lauren, how do you explain the case method to prospective students?
Yeah, I think Laura did a great job explaining it, but what it boils down to in my mind is you're given an ambiguous problem. And how do you cut to the chase and figure out what's going on at the heart of the matter? And so you can make a decision to improve it. And so I think, so every day you get 3 cases, so you get 3 tries to get in there in class and really, and really help move the class forward. So I think, and when I think of the professor's role in the classroom, it's almost like a conductor of an orchestra. And just really how they're able to, they can see someone thinking and they're like, Laura, what do you think about this problem? Or, like, how do you respond to that comment that was just said? And I think Laura hit the nail on the head when the case method preps you to be able to respond at any moment when your opinion's asked, and to feel comfortable sharing it, even when it's not fully baked sometimes. It's like, this is my hypothesis, based on X, Y, and Z, and someone can have a great counterpoint, and you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. With that new information, yeah, I think that, he or she is right now. And it also allows you to respectfully disagree too, and get comfortable doing that, because someone described it to me as when you disagree with a classmate's comment, it's really just a communication issue. So this is what I'm thinking of ABC in my head, but someone else is thinking of X, Y, and Z. And so how do we bridge that gap and make sure that we're all on the same page? So I think it's how to respectfully disagree, how to change your mind, how to feel comfortable speaking up when you're not, in my case, the engineer in the room, and, just try to make sure everyone's on the same page.
So we always end with the same question, and that is, what advice would you share with a prospective student? So it can be really about anything, the application process or adjusting to business school. But what would you share with a prospective student, Lauren?
Someone told me when I was applying and visiting schools, business school is a time to stretch yourself, and you have 2 years to really grow. So go somewhere where you feel comfortable. And I mean, they it's because I had two siblings that went here, but really, when I stepped on grounds, I did feel like it was such a friendly and collaborative environment. And when I visited class, there were so many inside jokes were going on when I visited the classroom between the professor and the students. I was like, what is happening? As an outsider, but I really want to be a part of that community, and I felt at home here. And so I would say just visit the schools, talk to as many students as you can, and talk to professors. They love chatting with perspectives as well, and see where you feel comfortable and go there.
So my piece of advice is always to take some time really to reflect and think about what you care about and what is your priority and why you want this degree. Because really no school is the perfect school in any ways. It's what is the perfect school for you. And so for me, I really wanted to be in a place that really focused on community. I wanted to be at a school where people really came to that place for that experience, and I would have a lot of strong relationships. I wanted to be in a place that was very ethical and focused on the whole person and not just making a lot of money. And I wanted to have a place where I would have the opportunity to really lead and grow as a leader. And I think the student-run part of this really helps at UVA, and a place that was very intentional. And so I think that to take time to really think about what is important to you and what you want is so critical, because it's not going to get any easier change when you step on campus. You're still going to have to make those choices, right? If Lauren talked about academic, social, or recruiting first year, which of the two are you really going to focus on? And, it just doesn't get any easier. And so if you can come into that with an understanding of what you really care about and what you're going to prioritize, I think that only makes your 2 years even easier.
Both really great pieces of advice, and it's been interesting to sort of follow the thread of the things that people are emphasizing, as they share tips. A lot of it is sort of know what you want, be your true self through this process, and try not to lose focus on those things that really matter to you. So, well, Lauren, Laura, thank you so much for taking the time. It's a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Happy Darden Friday.
And that was my conversation with Laura Brokaw and Lauren Shaw, two students in our class of 2020. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we are all ears. We can be reached at darden@virginia.edu. And until next time, thanks for listening.